She was 21, a virgin, evicted and alone in the world. He was a lonely millionaire, haunted by loss and surrounded by secrets, and his indecent proposal turned all that was pure into darkness. If this story caught your interest, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. The rain fell mercilessly over Chicago that June night, transforming the downtown streets into dark rivers that reflected the city lights like drowned stars. Sophia observed the drops streaming down the foggy window of the cafe where she worked, her slender fingers pressing the empty tray tightly against her chest. Her shift was ending, and with it, her last night of normalcy, although she didn't know that yet. The Old Mill Cafe was one of those establishments that resisted time, like a faded photograph, preserving in its exposed brick walls and dark wooden furniture the memories of a gentler era. For Sophia, it had been more than just a job for the last 3 years. It was her refuge, the only place where she felt part of something, even if that something was just the routine of serving coffee and smiling politely at strangers who barely noticed her presence. Her footsteps echoed on the wooden floorboards as she collected the last cups of the night. The familiar sound of dishes clinking against the tray mingled with the soft jazz playing on the old speakers. It was a ritual she knew by heart: clean the tables, arrange the chairs, check the register. But that night, each gesture carried the weight of farewell. "Sophia, are you sure you don't want to stay at my house until you find another place?" The voice of Mrs. Parker, the cafe owner, was heavy with maternal concern. The gray-haired, kind-faced lady was the closest thing Sophia had to family since her mother had fallen ill. "Thank you, Mrs. Parker, but I can't accept." Sophia forced a smile as she stored her apron in the small staff locker for the last time. "You already do so much for me, and it's just for a few days. I'll find another place soon." A lie. Sophia knew it was a lie. With rent prices in the city and her waitress salary, finding a new home would be practically impossible. The building where she lived, an old tenement in Little Italy, had been sold to a developer, and the residents had received an eviction notice with only 2 days advance warning. Illegal, yes, but who cared about the rights of invisible tenants? After saying goodbye to Mrs. Parker with a hug that lasted longer than usual, Sophia faced the rainy night. Her wheeled suitcase, containing everything she owned in the world, dragged heavily across the uneven sidewalks. Her books, her only true possession of value, were protected in a plastic bag inside the suitcase. Well-worn novels, pages marked by folds and pencil annotations, stories that had been her only company on so many lonely nights. The downtown streets emptied as the night progressed. Sophia walked aimlessly, her soaked boots leaving wet trails on the asphalt. She passed dark alleys and abandoned buildings, noisy bars and homeless people huddled in doorways. The nocturnal city revealed its innards without shame, as if to remind her that there was no place for delicacy there. It was when the rain intensified that Sophia found shelter under the marquee of an Art Deco building in Union Square. Her fingers were numb with cold, and her clothes dripped, forming a puddle at her feet. From where she stood, she could see the movement of cars passing swiftly along the avenue, their lights reflecting in puddles like horizontal fireworks. The weight of reality began to settle in her chest like a cold stone. 21 years old, alone in the world, without a roof over her head. Her mother had been institutionalized for years in a psychiatric clinic upstate, lost in her own world of delusions and whispers. The aunts who had raised her had moved to the south, taking with them only bitter memories of a niece they had never wanted. And now, not even the damp walls of her rented room remained. Sophia closed her eyes, feeling the cold wind caress her face like ghostly fingers. Her beauty, though discreet, took on ethereal contours under the diffuse light of the street lamps. The oval face framed by brown hair that fell in soft waves to her shoulders, the large dark eyes that seemed to hold ancient secrets, the full lips that rarely opened in a genuine smile. It was in this moment of complete desolation that she first saw him, or perhaps it was he who saw her. Victor Blackwood emerged from the night like an apparition, his tall, imposing silhouette cut against the darkness. He wore a black overcoat that seemed to absorb light, and his steps were silent despite his expensive shoes. He carried no umbrella, as if the rain dared not touch him. His eyes, a blue so dark it bordered on black, fixed on Sophia with disturbing intensity. Time seemed to freeze. Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine, a primitive sensation of danger mixed with an inexplicable attraction. There was something about that man that made her think of ancient predators, of Gothic tales read at midnight, of promises whispered in dark rooms. "You're shivering." His voice was deep, with a slight accent that Sophia couldn't identify. It wasn't a question, nor a demonstration of concern. It was a simple statement of fact. Sophia didn't answer. Her hands tightened on the handle of her suitcase, her knuckles white with tension. The stranger took a step in her direction, and she noticed that he limped slightly on his right leg, an almost imperceptible defect that somehow made him more human, more real. "I have a proposal for you." The words came out like smoke in the cold air. "Something that could solve your immediate problems, and some you don't even know you have." A smile appeared on his lips, but didn't reach his eyes. Sophia felt her heart quicken, a mixture of fear and curiosity making her blood boil in her veins. Part of her wanted to run, to disappear into the night like so many other girls must have done before. But there was another part, a part she barely knew, that wanted to hear more. "What kind of proposal?" Her voice came out firmer than she expected, surprising them both. Victor took a business card from the inside pocket of his overcoat. The paper was thick, ivory-colored, with only a name and a phone number printed in black ink. "Call tomorrow at 9 o'clock sharp if you want to know more. I can offer shelter, security, and something you've never experienced before." Before Sophia could respond, he had already turned and begun to walk away. His figure was swallowed by the darkness as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving only the card as proof that the encounter had not been a hallucination caused by desperation. Sophia looked at the card in her trembling hands. The name Victor Blackwood seemed to pulse, under the faint light as if it had a life of its own. In the distance, thunder split the sky, and the rain intensified as if nature itself wanted to emphasize the gravity of that moment. That night, huddled on a park bench with her suitcase as her only pillow, Sophia dreamed. She dreamed of endless corridors in an ancient mansion, of piano music echoing through stone walls, of strong hands caressing her naked skin. And in her dream, there was a woman who looked terribly like her, shouting warnings that were lost in the wind. When day dawned, grey and damp, Sophia was still clutching the card tightly. At 9 o'clock, her fingers would dial that number, and her life would change forever. But for now, she just watched the city awaken, feeling the weight of destiny approaching like a storm on the horizon. The square clock struck 9, and each chime reverberated through Sophia's body like an omen. Her fingers trembled as she dialed the numbers on the public phone, each digit of Victor's card etched in her memory like a brand seared with hot iron. The dial tone sounded 3 times before a male voice, different from Victor's, answered. "Blackwood." "Residence." The voice was dry, professional, without any inflection that betrayed emotion. "I received a card from Mr. Blackwood last night. He asked me to call at 9. Sophia tried to keep her voice steady, but she could hear her own insecurity echoing on the line. There was a moment of silence, followed by the sound of papers being moved. "Your name?" "Sophia Wells." More silence. Sophia could hear her own breathing, now accelerated by anxiety. Finally, the voice returned. "A car will be sent to pick you up at Union Square in 30 minutes. Be in front of the main fountain. The driver will recognize you." The line went dead before Sophia could respond. She stood there, the phone still, pressed against her ear, listening to the busy tone as if it were distant music. 30 minutes. 30 minutes to decide if she would surrender her life into the hands of a stranger or continue wandering the streets, without destination and without hope. The morning was cold, but the sky had cleared after last night's storm. Sophia dragged her suitcase to the fountain, observing the pigeons drinking water from puddles left by the rain. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since the day before, but nervousness was stronger than hunger. Exactly 30 minutes later, A black Rolls-Royce Phantom stopped smoothly by the curb. The car seemed out of place there, like a creature from another world that accidentally crossed dimensions. The driver, a tall, thin man with close-cropped grey hair, got out and walked over to her without hesitation. "Miss Wells." His voice was the same from the phone. "Please come with me." The interior of the car was a dream in leather and wood. Sophia sank into the back seat, feeling small and out of place amidst such luxury. The driver stored her worn suitcase in the trunk, without commenting on its battered state, and soon they were gliding through the streets of Chicago like a black, silent ghost. As they left downtown, Sophia noticed they were heading towards the Lake Forest area. The streets became wider, the houses more imposing, until they began to ascend a private road that wound up a hill covered with preserved woodland. The air became denser as they climbed, a soft mist enveloping the trees like a ghostly veil. The Blackwood mansion appeared suddenly, as if it had materialized from the mist itself. It was an imposing, dark stone construction, with Gothic towers that rose toward the cloudy sky. Ancient vines covered part of the walls, and the tall windows reflected the diffuse light like watchful eyes. The car stopped in front of a marble staircase. Sophia barely had time to absorb the grandeur of the place before the main door opened, revealing Victor Blackwood. In daylight, he seemed even more impressive, tall with broad shoulders accentuated by the custom Italian suit, black hair with silver strands at the temples, and those eyes that seemed to see through her. "Welcome to your new home, Sophia." His voice had the same hypnotic power as the night before. "Although I should warn you, once you enter through this door, the rules of the outside world no longer apply." Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine. There was a veiled warning in those words, a last chance to retreat. But where would she go? What awaited her in the streets beyond cold and loneliness, at least here, in this Gothic mansion strait? Out of a novel was the promise of something different, something new. "What are your rules, then?" she asked, once again surprising herself with her own boldness. An enigmatic smile curved Victor's lips. "First rule, you don't ask questions about the past. Second, you don't enter any locked room. Third, you don't attempt contact with the outside world. Fourth, when I call you, you come. Fifth," he paused, his eyes darkening. "Fifth rule, you are mine, completely mine, for 6 months." The air seemed to grow heavier, charged with electricity. Sophia felt her heart beating against her ribs like a caged bird. "And what do I get in return?" "Besides a roof over your head and all your needs met." Victor descended a step, coming closer. "You get the chance to discover who you really are, Sophia Wells, to awaken something that has been dormant inside you for generations." His words had a strange weight, as if they carried hidden meanings. Sophia thought of her mother, lost in her delusions in a psychiatric hospital, murmuring about ancient blood and broken promises. She thought of the aunts who had raised her, always watching her with a mixture of fear and revulsion, as if they saw something in her that frightened them. "And if I want to leave before the 6 months?" "You won't want to." The certainty in his voice was absolute. "But if you insist, the doors will always be open. I just can't guarantee that you'll find the same world you left behind." Sophia took a step forward, climbing the first step of the staircase. It was as if her body moved of its own accord, drawn by a force greater than her fear or reason. When she reached the landing where Victor stood, he extended his hand. His fingers were long and elegant, with an ancient signet ring on his pinky finger. "I accept your rules." Sophia placed her hand on his, feeling an electric shock course through her body at the moment of contact. Victor led her into the mansion, and the sound of the door closing behind them echoed like a seal being locked. The entrance hall was an impressive circular space, with a floor of black marble where their steps echoed like music. A double spiral staircase led to the upper floors, and crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling like frozen stalactites. "James will show you to your room." Victor made a gesture to the driver, who had entered silently with Sophia's suitcase. "Rest, take a bath. At 7 we'll dine together. Wear the dress you'll find on your bed." Before Sophia could respond, he had already walked away, disappearing. down one of the many corridors that branched off from the hall. James made a gesture for her to follow him, and they began to climb the staircase. The railing under her fingers was dark wood, polished by generations of hands until it felt like silk. The room was in the east wing of the mansion, with windows overlooking a garden covered by the perpetual mist. It was larger than her entire former apartment, decorated in shades of navy blue and silver. The king-size bed was covered with white silk sheets, and on it, as promised, was a dress. Sophia approached the dress slowly, her fingers touching the fabric with reverence. It was pure silk, in a shade of dark red that resembled aged wine. Beside it was a velvet box containing a set of black lace lingerie and a pair of Louboutin shoes. "Dinner will be served in the main hall," James informed from the door. "I'll ring the bell at 6:30 to help you find your way." When she was alone, Sophia let herself fall onto the bed, feeling the soft fabric under her hands. The room smelled of fresh roses and something else, something old and indefinable. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to process the radical change in her life in the last 24 hours. It was then that she heard it. A piano playing somewhere in the mansion, a sad and familiar melody that she couldn't identify. The notes floated through the walls like ghosts, carrying with them a feeling of loss and desire that made her heart tighten. Sophia got up and walked to the window, walked to the yew. Outside, the mist danced among the trees like the veils of a ghost bride. For a moment, she had the impression of seeing a female figure in the garden, wearing a white dress stained with red. But when she blinked, the vision had disappeared. The clock on the wall marked 3 in the afternoon. Still 4 hours until dinner. 4 hours to prepare not only physically but mentally for whatever Victor Blackwood had planned for her. Sophia walked to the adjoining bathroom, equally luxurious with a Victorian bathtub and floor-to-ceiling mirrors. As the bathtub filled, she observed her reflection. Her eyes seemed different, darker, as if they were already adapting to the somber atmosphere of the mansion. Or perhaps it was just fatigue, mixed with anticipation of what was to come. The hot water enveloped her body like a long-awaited embrace, and Sophia allowed herself to relax for the first time in days. The sound of the piano still echoed in the distance, lulling her into a state between wakefulness and dream. It was in this moment of vulnerability that the first tears came, not of sadness or fear, but of an emotion she still couldn't name. Something was beginning. Something bigger than her, bigger than Victor, bigger than that Gothic mansion on the hill. And as the tears mingled with the bath water, Sophia was certain that, for better or worse, her life would never be the same again. The piano music lulled Sophia into a restless sleep, populated by strange and vivid dreams. In them she walked through endless corridors of the mansion, following the sound of a woman crying. Each door she opened revealed scenes from a past that wasn't hers. Rituals in circles of black candles, women dancing under the full moon, blood flowing into crystal goblets. Awakening came with the first lights of morning, brought by firm knocks on her door. Sophia opened her eyes, disoriented, still dressed in the red dress from the night before. Her body ached as if she had danced all night long, though she didn't remember doing more than dining. "Come in." Her voice came out hoarse, still heavy with sleep. James entered carrying a breakfast tray and a black envelope sealed with red wax. "Your breakfast, miss, and your instructions for the day." Sophia sat up in bed, watching the butler place the tray on a side table. The smell of fresh coffee and freshly baked croissants made her stomach growl. The envelope, however, drew her attention more than the food. "Should I open it now?" "Mr. Blackwood suggests you have your coffee first. The instructions may be disturbing on an empty stomach." There was something in the way James said that which made Sophia shudder. She forced herself to eat, though each forkful seemed heavy in her mouth. The coffee was perfectly prepared, and the croissants melted on her tongue, but her mind was fixed on the black envelope that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. When she finished, her hands trembled as she broke the wax seal. Inside was a single sheet of parchment paper covered with elegant handwriting in red ink. "Dear Sophia, your first day of training will begin at noon. Until then, you have permission to explore the mansion with 2 exceptions. The 3rd floor is forbidden, as is any locked door you may find. In your closet you will find appropriate clothes for the day. Dress comfortably but maintain elegance. Your body will need freedom of movement. Don't make hasty decisions about what you will see or hear today. Keep your mind open and your heart receptive. The power that runs in your veins is older than your doubts. I will be waiting in the winter garden at noon. Yours VB. Sophia reread the letter 3 times before setting it on the table. Her heart was beating in a strange rhythm, as if responding to music only it could hear. In the closet, she found a selection of clothes that seemed to have come from a luxury boutique. Dresses, pants, blouses, all in dark tones and noble fabrics. She opted for soft black yoga pants and a silk blouse of the same color. Her feet, barefoot for now, moved silently across the wooden floor as she began her exploration of the mansion. Daylight revealed details that night had hidden. The walls were covered with symbols subtly carved into the wood, spirals, concentric, circles, shapes that resembled letters of a forgotten alphabet. Some doors were locked, as Victor had warned, but others opened to rooms that seemed frozen in time. In a library that occupied 2 heights, Sophia found endless shelves of ancient books. Many were written in languages she didn't recognize, with titles in strange alphabets and disturbing illustrations. One volume in particular caught her attention, bound in black leather with no apparent title. When she touched it, she felt an electric shock run through her arm. The book opened by itself in her hands, the yellowed pages turning as if moved by an invisible wind. They stopped at an illustration that made her catch her breath. A woman, naked except for symbols painted on her body, was lying on a stone altar. Around her, hooded figures formed a circle, and above her, a creature that wasn't entirely human bent as if to kiss her. That's not a book for beginners. Victor's voice sounded behind her, making her drop the volume. He caught it before it hit the floor, his movements quick and graceful, like those of a predator. He was dressed all in black again, but more casually, linen pants and a long-sleeved shirt with the first buttons open, revealing a glimpse of a muscular torso and an ancient tattoo at the base of his neck. "What is that?" Sophia asked, her eyes fixed on the symbols that decorated his skin. "An initiation mark." Victor closed the book carefully. "Something that you will also receive when you're ready." "Ready for what?" "To accept your heritage." He approached, his body radiating a heat she could feel even without touching him. "The blood that runs in your veins is not common, Sophia. Your maternal lineage dates back to a time before written history, when women were more than mere mortals." Sophia took a step back, her back meeting a bookshelf. "You're talking about magic?" A cruel smile curved Victor's lips. "Magic is a childish word for something much deeper. I'm talking about power. The kind of power that makes powerful men kneel and empires fall. And you think I have this power? I know you do." He raised a hand, his fingers tracing an invisible line in the air near her face without touching her. "I can feel it vibrating under your skin, pulsing in your blood. It's still sleeping, like a child in the womb. But soon it will awaken." This air between them seemed charged with electricity. Sophia could feel every cell in her body responding to his proximity, as if her blood truly recognized something familiar in his presence. "And what happens when this power awakens?" "It depends on the woman." Victor took a step back, his dark eyes studying her intensely. "Some go mad with its force, others—" He made a significant pause. "Others become something more than human." "Like your wife?" Sophia couldn't contain the question. Victor's face hardened instantly. "Don't break the rules, Sophia. Not when we're so close to beginning." He consulted an antique pocket watch that he took from his pants pocket. 20 minutes until noon. Go to your room, put on something appropriate for the garden." "And Sophia." His eyes met hers with an intensity that made her shudder. "Don't try to resist what you will feel. Acceptance is the key to survival." Sophia nodded silently and left the library, her heart beating like a drum in her ears. In her room, She found a pair of black ballet flats that seemed made to measure for her feet. As she put them on, she noticed something different in the dressing table mirror. Her reflection was altered. Her eyes seemed darker, her skin emanated a subtle glow, and there was something in her posture that she didn't recognize, a new strength, a more marked presence. It was as if the shy and insecure Sophia was slowly dissolving, giving way to something more. The path to the winter garden was long, passing through corridors decorated with ancient tapestries, depicting scenes of pagan rituals and sacrifices. Sophia tried not to look too closely at the details, but her eyes seemed drawn against her will to the female figures that dominated each scene, powerful, sensual, dangerous women. The winter garden was an impressive structure of glass and wrought iron, connected to the mansion by a covered walkway. Exotic plants grew in profusion, creating an environment that seemed more like a tropical forest than a garden. The air was dense and humid, heavy with the perfume of night flowers that shouldn't be open at that hour of the day. Victor was waiting for her in the center of a circle of black stones, partially covered by moss. He was barefoot now, his shirt completely open, revealing more ancient tattoos on his torso. In his hands, he held what looked like a cup of black crystal. "Welcome to your first awakening ritual." His voice had a different tone, deeper, older. "Are you ready to begin?" Sophia looked at the cup in his hands, at the symbols on his skin, at the circle of stones that seemed to pulse with its own energy. She wasn't ready, not really. But something inside her, something that had slept for generations, was desperate to awaken. "Yes," she answered, her voice firmer than she expected. "I'm ready." The air in the winter garden grew denser, as if the atmosphere itself responded to the tension of the moment. Victor raised the black crystal cup, and Sophia could see that it was filled with a dark liquid that seemed to move on its own. "This is the first test," he said, his voice reverberating in a strange way in the enclosed space. "What do you see in the liquid?" Sophia approached, her bare feet feeling the energy pulsing through the stones of the circle. She leaned over the cup, her eyes fixed on the dark liquid. At first she saw only her own distorted reflection, but then, "It's changing." Her voice came out as a whisper. I see a woman. She's dancing. No, she's performing some kind of ritual. There are others with her, all dressed in white, but she wears red." A smile of cruel satisfaction curved Victor's lips. "Continue." "She looks like me, but older?" "No, not older. Different. Her eyes." Sophia choked. "Her eyes are completely black. She is your ancestor." Victor moved the cup in a slow circle, making the liquid swirl. "The first of your lineage to awaken the power. Blood holds memory, Sophia. It holds secrets. It holds power." He extended the cup to her. "Drink." Sophia instinctively backed away. "What is it?" "Wine consecrated under the new moon, mixed with ancient herbs and—" He made a significant pause. "A drop of my own blood." Sophia's heart was beating so hard that she could hear it in her ears. All her life she had been trained to say no to situations like this, to run from strangers who offered suspicious drinks, to fear the unknown. But there was something stronger than her fear, something that sang in her veins, begging to be released. She took the cup with trembling hands, and before she could change her mind, brought it to her lips. The liquid was surprisingly sweet, with an underlying metallic taste that made her tongue tingle. As soon as she swallowed, she felt a warmth spread through her body like liquid fire. Now Victor took the cup from her hands. "Dance." "What?" "Dance. Let the power flow. Don't think, just feel." As if responding to an invisible command, music began to play, not from the house's sound system, but from somewhere inside her own mind. It was ancient, tribal, with drums that seemed to beat in the same rhythm as her heart. Her body began to move on its own, as if every drop of blood in her veins knew exactly what steps to take. Her arms rose, her hands tracing symbols in the air that she had never seen but somehow knew. The temperature in the winter garden increased. The plants seemed to lean toward her, their flowers opening in an explosion of colors and aromas. Sophia could feel the energy flowing through her, connecting her with something vast and ancient. Victor began to move too, circling her like a predator, his bare feet silent on the stones. His presence was like electricity on Sophia's skin each time he passed close enough to touch. "You're beginning to see?" His voice sounded distant, as if coming from another world. "Beginning to feel?" Sophia was beyond words. Her entire body vibrated with an energy she had never experienced before. She could feel every beat of her heart, every drop of blood running through her veins. More than that, she could feel life pulsing in the plants around her, the ancient energy in the stones beneath her feet, the growing power in the air. That's when it happened, when the dance reached its apex, when the music in her mind became deafening. Sophia opened her eyes and saw the world differently. Colors were more intense, shadows deeper. She could see auras of energy around the plants, lines of power running through the ground like underground rivers. And Victor, Victor was something completely different now. His human form seemed only a thin mask over something much older, much more powerful. His tattoos glowed with their own light, and his eyes— "Your eyes," Sophia gasped, stopping abruptly. "They're like yours," he completed, his voice now loaded with power. "Black as the moonless night. This is how we see when power flows freely." Sophia staggered, suddenly dizzy with the sensory overload. Victor caught her before she fell, his strong arms enveloping her. The skin-to-skin contact sent shocks of energy through both of them. "The first awakening is always intense." He held her closer, one of his hands sliding to her nape. "Your body is adjusting to a new level of consciousness." What's happening to me?" Sophia barely recognized her own voice, hoarse and charged with power. "You're becoming what you always should have been." Victor leaned closer, his lips almost touching hers. A daughter of the ancient blood, a lady of the dark mysteries. The kiss, when it finally came, was like an explosion of pure energy. Sophia felt as if every cell in her body was on fire, as if her very essence was merging with something larger, deeper, more dangerous. Victor kissed her as if he wanted to devour her soul, his hands sliding over her body with a familiarity that should be frightening, but somehow seemed natural, inevitable. Sophia responded with equal intensity, her nails digging into his shoulders, her body arching against his as if seeking to merge completely. It was he who broke the kiss first, pulling away, just enough to look into her eyes. "Still black," he murmured, satisfied. "The power is still flowing." Sophia could feel it, a constant current of energy running through her body, making her skin tingle and her blood sing. It was intoxicating, addictive. Part of her wanted more, much more. "This is just the beginning," Victor promised, as if reading her thoughts. "There is so much more for you to learn, so much more to awaken." "And if I don't want to?" Sophia asked, though she knew it was too late for that question. "And if I want to go back to being normal?" A cruel smile curved his lips. "You were never normal, Sophia. There was never normality in your blood. The voices your mother heard, the strange dreams you always had, the inexplicable sensations. All of that was your power trying to awaken." He released her slowly, allowing her to stand on her own feet. Sophia staggered slightly, still dizzy with the overload of sensations. The world around her still seemed different, more alive, more dangerous, more real. "Go rest now," Victor ordered softly. "Your body needs to process the changes tonight." He made a significant pause. "Tonight, we will begin your true training." Sophia nodded, unable to form words. Her feet automatically led her out of the winter garden, through corridors now even more alive with energy and hidden meaning, to her room. She fell on the bed, still dressed, her body trembling with residual waves of power. She closed her eyes, but the visions continued. Fragments of ancestral memories, ancient rituals, secrets whispered through the centuries. In her dreams, she danced with black-eyed women under red moons. In her dreams, she tasted true power. In her dreams, she became something more than human. And somewhere in the mansion, Victor smiled, knowing that the first step had been taken, the awakening had begun, and there was no turning back. Sophia's sleep was interrupted by urgent knocks on her door. When she opened her eyes, the darkness of the room seemed alive, pulsing with shadows that danced on the walls. For a moment, she was disoriented. How long had she slept? The sky beyond the windows was tinged with red, but she couldn't tell if it was sunrise or sunset. "Miss Wells?" James's voice sounded tenser than usual. "Mr. Blackwood requests your presence immediately in the main hall." Sophia got up, surprised, to find that her body didn't ache despite the intensity of the previous ritual. In fact, she felt stronger, more alive. Each movement seemed fluid, as if her body had finally found its natural frequency. "Should I change clothes?" she asked through the door. "There's no time, it's urgent." Something in James's tone made her move faster. She opened the door and followed him through the corridors, noticing how her altered vision from the ritual still persisted. She could see lines of energy running through the walls, invisible connections between seemingly common objects. The main hall was illuminated only by black candles, dozens of them, creating an environment that seemed more like an ancient catacomb than a room in a modern mansion. Victor was in the center of the space, still shirtless, his defined muscles gleaming with sweat despite the cold air. But he wasn't alone. A woman was with him, tall, thin almost to the point of fragility, with white hair that fell like a curtain of snow to her waist. She wore a simple white dress that seemed to float around her, and her bare feet made no sound on the marble floor. When she turned to face Sophia, the shock was like a punch to the stomach. It was like looking in a mirror distorted by time. The same delicate features, the same full lips, the same eyes, except that hers were completely white, without iris or pupil. "Sophia," Victor spoke, his voice tense. "Meet Eliza, my wife." The world seemed to freeze for a moment. Sophia felt her blood freeze in her veins, her new power retracting like a frightened animal. The woman who should be dead, or at least institutionalized in a psychiatric clinic, was there, very real, very alive. "She's perfect." Eliza's voice was like breaking crystal, musical and cutting at the same time, exactly as in the visions. You should be..." Sophia couldn't complete the phrase. "Dead? Crazy? Locked up?" Eliza smiled, and the smile transformed her face into something predatory. "I've been elsewhere, learning, growing, waiting." She began to circle Sophia slowly, like a snake hypnotizing its prey. "You still don't understand, do you? You think you're here by chance? That Victor chose you for your beauty, your loneliness, your vulnerability?" "Eliza." Victor's tone was a warning. "No, my love, she needs to know." Eliza stopped in front of Sophia, close enough to touch. "You are here because I chose you, because I saw you in my visions, because you are the missing key." Sophia took a step back, her head spinning with too many revelations. "Key to what?" "To the final ritual," Victor answered, moving to stand beside his wife. "The ritual that will complete what we began 10 years ago." "You see," Eliza continued, her voice now almost gentle, "there is power in blood, power in ancient lineages. But the true power, the supreme power, comes from the union of certain specific bloodlines." She extended a pale hand, her long fingers touching Sophia's face with a disturbing intimacy. "Your maternal lineage and mine are complementary, like light and shadow, like life and death." "I don't understand." But Sophia did understand, on some deep and instinctive level. Her blood sang in response to Eliza's touch, recognizing something familiar and at the same time alien. "The ritual that transformed me," Eliza gestured to her white eyes, "was only half of the process. I need you, your blood, your essence, to complete it, to reach maximum power. And what happens to me in this process?" A cruel smile curved Eliza's lips. "You become like me, or die trying. Enough, Victor intervened, his voice cutting the air like a blade. This isn't how we plan to tell her. Plans change, my love. Eliza moved away from Sophia, moving to embrace Victor from behind. And time is running out. The blood moon approaches. Sophia observed the interaction between the two with a mixture of fascination and horror. There was something deeply wrong in the way they moved together, as if they were a single entity divided into two bodies. The power that emanated from them was almost suffocating. Why would I agree to participate in this? Sophia asked, surprised by the firmness in her own voice. Why would I risk my life for your ritual? Because you're already too involved to retreat, Victor answered, his eyes now completely black again. The power that awakened today is just a fraction of what you can become. And once you taste true power, there's no turning back, Eliza completed, her white eyes gleaming in the candlelight. So you can already feel it, can't you? The hunger, the need, the desire for more. Sophia could. The power she had experienced in the winter garden still ran in her veins like liquid fire, begging to be released again. Every cell in her body yearned for more of that feeling of completeness, of connection with something greater and older than herself. How long? She heard herself asking, as if her mouth had a will of its own. 3 days until the blood moon, Victor answered. 3 days to prepare you, to strengthen you, to ensure you survive the ritual. And if I refuse? Eliza laughed, a sound that resembled breaking crystal bells. You won't. Your blood won't allow it. The power won't allow it. As if to prove her point, she raised a hand and made a gesture in the air. Sophia felt her body respond instantly, an intense heat spreading through her veins. Her knees weakened, and she would have fallen if Victor hadn't moved with supernatural speed to hold her. Easy, my love, he murmured to Eliza. She is still fragile. For now, Eliza smiled, her teeth too white in the candlelight. But in 3 days, in 3 days, she will be magnificent. Sophia tried to stand on her own feet, but her body seemed too heavy. Victor's touch was like electricity on her skin, and Eliza's presence made the air vibrate with static energy. Rest. Now? Victor lifted her in his arms as if she weighed nothing. Tomorrow we will begin your true training. You will need all your strength. As he carried her out of the hall, Sophia saw over his shoulder how Eliza watched them. The woman in white smiled, her empty eyes gleaming with their own light, her hands tracing symbols in the air that left luminous trails. Sophia's last thought before succumbing to darkness was that, even knowing she was being manipulated, even understanding the mortal danger she faced, she couldn't find within herself the desire to flee. The power sang in her veins like a siren, promising secrets and ecstasies beyond human comprehension. And she, God help her, wanted to answer that call. Dawn brought a dense mist that enveloped the mansion like a ghostly mantle. Sophia woke in, her bed still dressed in yesterday's clothes, her body vibrating with strange energy. The memories of last night, Eliza, the power, the revelations, seemed both a distant dream and painfully real. She sat up slowly, noting that her senses remained heightened. She could hear the whisper of the wind through the cracks in the windows, feel the pulse of energy in the ancient walls, see the patterns of light and shadow dancing in the air as if they were tangible. A breakfast tray was on the side table, steam rising in hypnotic spirals from the porcelain cup. Beside it, a new note on black paper, this time written in silver ink. Dress in the clothes left in the bathroom. Today we begin your true training. Eat nothing but the herbal tea in the blue cup. Fasting is necessary for what is to come. Vubi. In the bathroom, Sophia found an outfit that seemed to have come from a modern pagan ritual. A long black silk dress with deep slits on the sides that allowed freedom of movement, and a series of braided leather ribbons that served as a kind of decorative harness over the fabric. As she dressed, she observed her reflection in the mirror with growing fascination. Her eyes, though no longer completely black as during the ritual, had a different glow now, something wild, primitive. Her skin seemed to emit a subtle luminescence. as if the power that ran in her veins was too close to the surface. The tea had a bitter and complex taste, with notes of herbs she didn't recognize. As soon as the liquid touched her tongue, she felt a wave of heat spread through her body, awakening every nerve, every sense. The door opened without anyone knocking, revealing Eliza. The woman in white seemed even more ethereal in daylight, her hair and skin almost transparent. "Are you ready to begin?" Sophia nodded, unable to form words in the presence of the other woman's powerful presence. She followed Eliza through the corridors of the mansion, descending stairs she hadn't noticed before, until they reached a subterranean space that looked like ancient catacombs. The ritual hall was circular, with rough stone walls where ancient symbols had been carved. The floor was a complex mosaic of black and white stones, forming patterns that seemed to move when observed for too long. Black candles floated in the air without apparent support, their blue flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. Victor was already there, his bare torso covered with new symbols painted in silver ink. He was kneeling in the center of a circle of black salt, his eyes closed in deep concentration. "The power you felt yesterday," Eliza began, her voice echoing strangely in the enclosed space, "was just a glimpse. Today, you will learn to control it, to direct it, to transform it into something more than raw energy." She made a gesture with her hand, and Sophia felt her body being pushed by an invisible force into a second circle, this one made of white crystals. The moment her feet touched the inside of the circle, she felt as if an electric current ran through her body. "The first test is survival," Victor spoke without opening his eyes. "Power in its pure state is like fire. It can warm or consume. It depends on the willpower of the one who channels it." Before Sophia could process the meaning of those words, Eliza raised both hands. The air in the hall became dense, charged with static electricity, and then, without warning, a wave of pure energy hit Sophia like lightning. The pain was instantaneous and overwhelming. Every nerve in her body screamed in agony as the raw power coursed through her, threatening to tear her apart from the inside out. Her knees gave way, and she fell onto the cold floor, her body convulsing. "Control!" Victor's voice sounded distant. "Don't fight against the power, absorb it, direct it." Sophia tried to concentrate through the pain, seeking within herself that same sensation she had experienced in the winter garden. Her blood seemed to boil in her veins, but there was something more there, an ancient force, a knowledge inscribed in her very DNA. Slowly, painfully, she began to feel how she could influence the flow of energy. It was like trying to direct a river of flames with bare hands, but somehow she knew what to do. Her body began to vibrate at a different frequency, adapting to the power instead of resisting it. "Yes," Eliza exclaimed, her voice carrying cruel satisfaction. "Now return it." The command hit something primitive in Sophia's brain. Her eyes opened, completely black again, and she raised her hands in an instinctive gesture. The energy that coursed through her changed direction, now flowing from her outward in a jet of bluish light. Eliza received the attack with a smile, absorbing the energy as if it were water. But Sophia didn't stop, couldn't stop. The power flowed from her like a storm, making the candles flicker and the crystals of the circle glow with blinding intensity. "Control!" Victor shouted again, but there was a different tone in his voice. Now concern. Sophia was beyond hearing. The power was intoxicating, addictive. Each time she released more energy, more seemed to spring from some bottomless well inside her. Her hands began to glow with their own light, and her hair floated around her as if underwater. It was Eliza who finally broke the flow, making a cutting gesture in the air that dissipated the energy like smoke in the wind. Sophia staggered, suddenly exhausted, but still vibrating with residual power. "Impressive." Eliza approached, her white eyes glowing with something close to respect. "You have more natural power than any initiate I've ever seen, but power without control is an invitation to madness," Victor completed, finally, opening his eyes. He rose in a fluid movement and walked to Sophia, who was still trembling in the center of the circle. "You need to learn to dose, to contain, to channel." His hands touched Sophia's shoulders, and she felt a different wave of heat spread through her body. Desire, pure and simple, mixed with the power that still ran in her veins. Victor must have felt it too, because his fingers tightened with more force and his eyes visibly darkened. Desire is also power, Eliza commented, observing the interaction between the two with a knowing smile. And you, dear Sophia, are overflowing with both. What happens now? Sophia asked, her voice hoarse. Now, Eliza moved to stand behind her, her cold hands sliding up Sophia's arms in a disturbing caress. We begin the true training. Victor will teach you to channel the power through the body. I will teach you to control it through the mind. And together, Victor completed, his face dangerously close to Sophia's, we will prepare you for the ritual that will change everything. Sophia was trapped between them, feeling the heat of Victor's body in front of her and the supernatural cold emanating from Eliza behind. It was like being suspended between two opposite poles of power, two equally irresistible forces. Yes, she whispered, though she didn't know exactly what she was agreeing to. Her body, her mind, her very soul seemed to be transforming into something new, something dangerous and beautiful and terrible. The blue candles flickered, casting shadows that danced on the walls like spectators of an ancient ritual. And in the depths of the Blackwood mansion, three figures remained united in an embrace that was both promise and threat, both beginning and end. The following hours transformed into a somber dance of power and desire. Victor and Eliza took turns training Sophia, each with their own method of awakening and channeling the power that ran in her veins. With Victor, the training was physical, visceral. He taught her to move with the power, to let it flow through, her muscles and nerves as a natural extension of her body. His hands guided her movements with an intimacy that went beyond physical touch. It was as if he could manipulate the very energy that pulsed beneath her skin. Power is not something separate from you, he explained, his body pressed against her back as he guided her arms in a fluid movement. It's an extension of who you are, of what you can become. The heat that emanated from him was intoxicating, making Sophia's blood boil in her veins. Each touch, each adjustment of posture, each whisper too close to her ear was a temptation that tested her limits. Eliza, on the other hand, focused on the mind. Her exercises were subtle, psychic, involving complex visualizations and energy manipulations that left Sophia mentally exhausted. The mind is the true channel of power, Eliza instructed, her white eyes fixed on Sophia with disturbing intensity. The body is merely the vessel. It is here, she touched Sophia's forehead with a cold finger, where the true transformation happens. Between one lesson and another, Sophia began to notice changes in herself. Her skin seemed more sensitive, each nerve hyperconsciously alive. Colors were more vibrant, sounds sharper, and most disturbingly, she could feel the emotions and energies of others as if they were tangible textures in the air. Victor's desire was like live embers, hot and insistent whenever he approached. Eliza's energy was like cutting ice, beautiful and deadly, and the connection between the two was something even more complex, a web of power, obsession, and something close to madness. During a break in the training, as Sophia drank water, from a crystal goblet Eliza approached from behind her, her cold fingers sliding over her exposed arms. You feel it, don't you? Her voice was like silk over broken glass. How he desires you, how the power in you calls to his. Sophia shuddered, both from the touch and the words. And that doesn't bother you. A musical laugh escaped Eliza's lips. Oh dear, you still don't understand. Desire is part of the ritual. Power needs 3 points to manifest completely, like a perfect triangle. Her fingers moved up to Sophia's neck, causing goosebumps. Besides, who said only Victor desires you? Before Sophia could process the meaning of those words, Victor returned to the ritual hall. Something in his expression changed upon seeing the two women so close. His eyes visibly darkened, and the air around him seemed to charge with electricity. It's time for the next test, he announced, his voice hoarser than normal. Eliza moved away from Sophia with a knowing smile. Yes, it's time to see how much she can really endure. The test, as Sophia soon discovered, involved all three. Victor and Eliza positioned themselves at opposite points of the ritual circle, creating a field of energy that made the air vibrate like tensioned violin strings. "Stay in the center," Victor instructed, "and don't resist what you're going to feel." Sophia obeyed, her body already responding to the growing energy in the environment. The moment she stepped into the center of the circle, she felt as if she had been plunged into an ocean of sensations. Power flowed between the three like electrical currents, connecting them in a circuit of pure energy. Each breath from Victor sent waves of heat through her. Each movement from Eliza caused cold shivers on her skin, and her own power responded to both, growing and transforming in ways she had never imagined possible. "Open your eyes," Eliza's voice sounded distant, as if coming from another world, "and see what we really are." Sophia obeyed, and the world exploded in colors and sensations. Victor was no longer just a man. He was a form of ancestral power, dark and seductive like the moonless night. Eliza was pure light, cold and cutting like ice stars, and she could see herself reflected in their eyes, a creature of fire and shadow, power and desire incarnate. "The final ritual," Victor spoke, his voice reverberating with power, "is not just about awakening your power. It's about union, fusion, transformation." "Three energies," Eliza continued, moving in a slow circle around Sophia. "Three bloods, three souls, united in a single point of absolute power." "And what happens at that point?" Sophia asked, though part of her already knew the answer. "Transcendence." Victor's voice was closer now. "Or total destruction. It depends on how much power we can control, on how much our bodies and minds can endure." "And if we fail?" "Then we'll join the other triads that have tried and failed throughout the centuries." Eliza answered with disturbing calm, their names written on ancient tombstones, their powers lost in the wind. The air between them grew denser, charged with unspoken promises and threats. Sophia could feel Victor's desire as a physical force, calling to her. She could feel Eliza's hunger, cold and cutting like glass, and her own power responded to both, growing and transforming into something new and dangerous. "2 days," Victor murmured, his lips dangerously close to Sophia's ear. 2 days until the blood moon, until the moment when three become one. "Until then," Eliza completed, her cold hands sliding over Sophia's arms, "we need to strengthen your limits, test your barriers, prepare you for what is to come." Sophia closed her eyes, letting herself be enveloped by the power flowing between them. Part of her knew she should be terrified by the danger, by the possibility of destruction, by the way her body and mind were being transformed. But a larger, deeper, older part yearned for this, for power, for union, for transcendence. "Yes," she whispered, her voice charged with power and promise. "Prepare me." The blue candles flickered, as if responding to her consent, and in the depths of the Blackwood mansion, three figures remained united in an ancient dance of power and desire, preparing for a ritual that could elevate them beyond humanity, or destroy them completely. Night fell over the Blackwood mansion like a velvet black mantle, bringing with it a palpable change in the atmosphere. The training had left Sophia exhausted, but it was a different kind of tiredness, not physical but energetic, as if every cell in her body had been reconfigured. In her room, trying to recover her strength with a hot bath, Sophia observed her reflection in the bathwater. Her skin seemed to emit a subtle glow, as if the power now flowing in her veins was too close to the surface. The symbols Victor had painted on her body during training wouldn't wash off, even with water. They seemed to have been absorbed by her skin, becoming part of her. A movement in the bathroom mirror caught her attention. For a moment, she thought, she had seen another figure, a woman wearing red with completely black eyes. But when she blinked, there was only her own reflection. The visions will become more frequent. Eliza's voice sounded from the door, making Sophia start. The woman in white was standing there, her ethereal body almost transparent in the dim light. They are ancestral memories awakening, the blood recognizing itself through time. You could knock before entering. Sophia tried to cover herself with her hands, feeling strangely vulnerable. A cruel smile curved Eliza's lips. Modesty? At this point? She approached the bathtub, her movements fluid like water. After the ritual, there will be no barriers between us, neither physical nor mental nor energetic. Sophia felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the water temperature. How is it, the complete ritual? Painful. Eliza sat on the edge of the bathtub, her cold fingers playing with the water's surface. Ecstatic, transformative. Imagine your body being dismantled at the molecular level and reconstructed. Imagine your consciousness expanding until it touches infinity. Imagine pleasure and pain so intense that the line between them ceases to exist. Her words made the power inside Sophia pulse like a second heartbeat. And after. Eliza leaned closer, her cold breath against Sophia's face. After, we become something beyond human comprehension, something that transcends the limitations of flesh and time. The sound of footsteps interrupted the moment. Victor was standing in the bathroom doorway, his dark eyes observing the scene with predatory intensity. "Dinner is served," he announced, his voice hoarser than normal. "And we have much to discuss about tomorrow." Sophia rose from the bathtub, suddenly aware of every drop of water sliding down her skin. Victor's gaze followed her like a physical caress, and even Eliza made no movement to move away. "Get dressed," Eliza finally said, extending a black silk robe. "Today we'll dine in the main hall, and after—" She exchanged a significant look with Victor. "After we'll begin the true preparation for the ritual." Dinner was served on plates of antique porcelain, decorated with symbols similar to those now marking Sophia's skin. The wine in black crystal goblets had a familiar metallic taste. More blood, she realized, though she didn't know whose. "Tomorrow is the last day before the blood moon," Victor explained, his gaze fixed on Sophia over the rim of his goblet. "Your body and mind need to be perfectly aligned to endure the ritual. And for that," Eliza continued, "we need to break the last barriers, the last fears, the last hesitations." Sophia felt her heart quicken. "How?" "Through preliminary union," Victor answered, his voice loaded with promise and threat. "A rehearsal for the final ritual, a chance for your body and your energy to get accustomed to the intensity of what is to come." "Preliminary union?" Sophia repeated, though her blood was already singing in anticipation of the meaning of those words. Eliza rose from her chair, moving to stand behind Sophia. Her cold hands slid over Sophia's shoulders, causing shivers. "Your power needs to learn to dance with ours. Your energy needs to recognize ours. Your body—" She made a significant pause. "Your body needs to accept ours." Victor also stood, approaching from the other side. The contrast between the heat emanating from him and the supernatural cold of Eliza made Sophia's head spin. "It's your choice," he said, though his tone suggested there wasn't really any choice at all. "But without this preparation, your chances of surviving the final ritual are minimal." Sophia closed her eyes, feeling the power pulse in her veins like a storm about to explode. Part of her, the part that still remembered who she was, just a few days ago screamed in warning, but a larger, older, more powerful part yearned for this, for the power, for the union, for the transcendence. "Yes," she whispered, her voice charged with power and desire. "Show me." Eliza's smile was predatory. "Let's go to the ritual hall. There, the energy is more conductive." Victor extended a hand to Sophia, while Eliza maintained her cold touch on her shoulders. Together, the three descended to the lower levels of the mansion, where the blue candles already floated in the air, as if waiting for them. The ritual circle had been modified. Black and white crystals alternated in a complex pattern, and in the center an altar of ancient stone had appeared, covered with red and black silks. "Remember," Victor murmured as he guided Sophia to the center of the circle, Don't resist, don't fight, just feel. And if I lose control, Sophia asked, her voice trembling slightly. That's the idea, Eliza answered with a cruel smile. Sometimes we need to completely lose ourselves to find ourselves again. The candles flickered, as if responding to the growing energy in the environment, and in the depths of the Blackwood mansion, 3 figures began an ancient dance of power and desire, preparing for a union that would transcend the limits of flesh and spirit. The last day before the blood moon dawned with an atmosphere charged with expectation and power. Sophia woke in her bed, her body still vibrating with memories of the previous night. The preliminary union had been more intense than anything she could have imagined, leaving marks not only on her skin, but on her very energy. The symbols on her body had multiplied during the ritual, appearing spontaneously as if written by invisible hands. Now they formed complex patterns extending from her neck to her ankles, some glowing softly, even in daylight. They are the marks of awakening. Eliza's voice sounded from the door. She was wearing a different white dress today, almost translucent, that seemed to float around her like mist. Your body is preparing for the final transformation. Sophia sat up in bed, noticing how each movement seemed different now, more fluid, more conscious. What happens today? Today is the day of fasting and purification. Victor entered the room right after Eliza, his bare torso covered with symbols similar to Sophia's. Your body and your energy need to be completely clean for tomorrow's ritual. No. Food? Eliza explained, moving to sit on the edge of the bed. Only water and a special tea we've prepared. And she exchanged a significant look with Victor. More training. Sophia shuddered, remembering the intensity of the previous night's training. Her body still carried the marks of that union, not just the mystical symbols, but also the more physical marks of passion and power. Don't be shy now. Victor smiled, noting her blush. After last night, you're already part of us. Tomorrow's ritual will only make it permanent. If I survive, Sophia couldn't help adding. Oh, you will survive. Eliza extended a pale hand, her cold fingers tracing one of the symbols on Sophia's arm. After what we saw yesterday, there is no doubt that your power is strong enough. Her touch sent shivers through Sophia's skin, awakening memories of the previous night. The contrast between Eliza's supernatural cold and Victor's intense heat, the way their powers had intertwined in a dance as old as time. Come, Victor extended a hand. The purification ritual needs to begin at sunrise. Sophia followed him with Eliza right behind through the mansion's corridors to a part she hadn't yet seen. An ancient oak door opened, revealing a circular chamber carved into the living rock, where a natural spring bubbled up from the ground, forming a natural pool of crystal-clear water. White candles, not black this time, floated above the water, and the air was charged with the aroma of herbs burning in ancient incense burners. Remove the robe, Eliza instructed softly. The water needs to touch every inch of your skin. Sophia obeyed, letting the black silk slide down her body to the floor. She no longer felt shame in her nudity before them, not after the previous night, not after their bodies and energies had merged in ways that transcended the physical. The water was surprisingly warm when she entered, almost as if it responded to her presence. The symbols on her skin began to glow more intensely upon contact with the liquid, and she could feel her power pulsing in response. Victor and Eliza positioned themselves on opposite sides of the pool, beginning to chant words in an ancient language that Sophia somehow understood, though she had never heard it before. It was a chant of purification, of preparation, of transformation. The water began to glow softly, as if absorbing the light from the candles and multiplying it. Sophia could feel energy flowing through her, not the savage power of previous rituals, but something more refined, purer. Submerge, Eliza commanded. Let the water cleanse not just your body, but your energy, your essence. Sophia took a deep breath and submerged completely. Under the water, the world seemed different. Sounds were distant, light was diffuse, and she could feel every current of energy flowing around her like silk threads. When she emerged, something had changed. Her vision was clearer than ever. each sense amplified to the maximum. She could see the aura of power around Victor and Eliza, could feel the currents of energy that connected the three, could hear the very pulse of the earth beneath her feet. "Perfect," Victor murmured, his dark eyes fixed on her with predatory intensity. "Your power is stronger and purer than ever. And more receptive," Eliza added, a knowing smile on her pale lips. "Now we can begin the true work of the day." Sophia exited the water, observing how crystalline drops slid down her skin, making the symbols shine like stars. Her entire body vibrated with contained energy, like a perfectly tuned musical instrument waiting to be played. "What happens now?" she asked, though part of her already knew the answer. "Now," Eliza answered, removing her own white dress with a fluid movement, "we prepare your body and your energy to endure what is to come. Tomorrow's ritual will be more intense than anything you've ever experienced." "Much more intense," Victor added, also undressing. The symbols on his body seemed to move in the candlelight, as if they had a life of their own. "And you need to be ready." Sophia felt her power respond to their presence, her blood singing in her veins like ancient wine. There was no more hesitation, no more fear. There was only desire. For power, for knowledge, for transcendence. "Show me," she whispered, her voice charged with promise and power. "Prepare me." The candles flickered as if responding to her consent, and in the ancient chamber, three figures began once more their dance of power and desire, preparing for a ritual that would change not just their lives, but the very nature of their existence. The night of the blood moon arrived with an intensity that made the air vibrate. The sky above the Blackwood mansion had a supernatural crimson tone, as if the firmament itself bled in anticipation of the ritual to come. Sophia was in her room, observing her reflection one last time. The day of purification and preparation had transformed her in ways that went beyond the physical. Her entire body seemed to emit its own light, the mystical symbols on her skin pulsing with contained power. The ritual dress that Eliza had prepared, a fluid fabric that seemed made of liquid shadows, accentuated each mark, each symbol, each evidence of her transformation. "It's time," Victor's voice sounded from the door. He was dressed entirely in black, the symbols on his bare torso glowing with an intensity almost painful to look at. In the corridor, Eliza awaited them. Her white dress seemed made of moonlight, creating a dramatic contrast with the dark garments of Sophia and Victor. The three formed a perfect triad: light, shadow, and the twilight between them. The path to the ritual hall in the basement seemed different tonight. The walls of the mansion pulsed with their own energy, as if the building itself was alive and aware of what was about to happen. Each step took them deeper, not just into the mansion, but into something older, more primitive. The ritual hall had been transformed. The circle of power was now formed by crystals that pulsed with their own light. Black and white alternated, creating a hypnotic pattern on the floor. In the center, the ancient stone altar was covered with symbols that seemed to move on their own as if they were alive. "Before we begin," Eliza spoke, her voice charged with power, "you need to fully understand what is about to happen. Once the ritual begins, there is no turning back." "The power we awakened in you," Victor continued, "is just a fraction of what is to come. The final union ritual goes far beyond merging energies or sharing power. It is a complete fusion," Eliza explained, her white eyes glowing intensely, "of body, mind, and spirit, three essences becoming a single transcendent entity." Sophia felt her heart quicken, but not with fear. It was anticipation, desire, an ancient hunger that came not just from her, but from generations of women of her lineage who had dreamed of this moment. "And if something goes wrong?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then we die." The simplicity in Victor's voice was frightening. "Not just our bodies, but our essences will be completely destroyed. No chance of rebirth, no other side to go to." "But if it works," Eliza smiled, a smile that contained universes of promise. "If it works, we become something that transcends existence itself." something that humans have called gods. Sophia looked at the two, the man who had awakened her power and the woman who had guided her transformation. In a few days they had completely changed her existence, taking her from a simple homeless waitress to an initiate in mysteries as ancient as time itself. "I'm ready," she said, her voice firmer than it had ever been. The ritual began with the sound of an ancient bell, its tone reverberating through the stone walls like a call through time. Eliza took position on the north side of the circle, her white and cold energy expanding like wings of light. Victor moved to the south, his dark and hot power creating living shadows that danced on the walls. Sophia climbed onto the altar, lying down on the ancient stone. Contact with the cold surface sent waves of energy through her body, making the symbols on her skin glow with renewed intensity. "With my blood," Victor began the ritual chant, his voice reverberating with ancestral power. "With my light," Eliza continued, her energy expanding even more. "With my essence," Sophia completed, the words coming naturally to her lips. The air in the hall became dense, charged with static electricity. The crystals in the circle began to pulse in a rhythm that resembled heartbeats, their lights intensifying until they became almost blind. It was then that the pain began. It was different from anything Sophia had ever experienced. Not a physical pain, but something deeper, as if every atom of her being was being dismantled and reconstructed. Her blood seemed to boil in her veins. Her skin burned as if being branded with hot iron. Victor and Eliza moved in synchrony, their hands tracing symbols in the air that left trails of light. Their powers intertwined, creating a vortex of energy that spun faster and faster around the altar. Sophia could feel her consciousness expanding, touching the minds of Victor and Eliza. She could see, through their eyes, feel what they felt, know what they knew. Memories that weren't hers flowed through her. Ancient rituals, hidden secrets, power beyond human comprehension. The moment of final union came like an explosion of light and darkness. Sophia felt her body arch on the altar, her mouth open in a silent scream. Pure, absolute, uncontrollable power flowed through her, through them, fusing three essences into a single transcendent entity. For an eternal moment, they were one. There was no more Sophia, Victor, or Eliza. There was only power, consciousness, pure existence. They could see through time, touch the stars, comprehend the fundamental mysteries of the universe. And then, slowly, the fusion began to stabilize. Three distinct consciousnesses once again, but now permanently connected, permanently transformed. When Sophia opened her eyes, the world was completely different. She could see the lines of power that connected all things, could feel the very breath of the earth beneath her feet. Her eyes, when she found her reflection in the crystal walls, were an impossible mixture of black and white, like an eternal eclipse. Victor and Eliza helped her rise from the altar, their touches sending waves of power and pleasure through her. They needed no words. They could feel each other's thoughts and emotions as if they were their own. "It is done," Eliza whispered, though her voice now contained echoes of Sophia and Victor. "We are one," Victor agreed, his energy now permanently intertwined with theirs. Sophia looked at her hands, observing how energy flowed through them like rivers of light. "What are we now?" "Something new," Eliza answered, a smile of satisfaction on her pale lips. "Something the world hasn't seen for millennia, and something the world will soon know again," Victor completed, his eyes gleaming with power and promise. Sophia felt a smile curve her own lips. She was no longer the frightened waitress who had arrived at the Blackwood mansion days ago. She was something more, something transcendent, something eternal. The candles in the ritual hall flickered, as if paying homage to what had been created there. And in the depths of the Blackwood mansion, three figures, now a single entity in three forms, began to plan their ascension to the power that had always been their destiny. The world outside continued turning, oblivious to the transformation,